Alhamdulillah. Welcome, welcome. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening, the last Tuesday of the month of April. Um, it's all about courtship and marriage right here on our Zoom platform. We appreciate you being here with us this evening. We'll get started with our program. We want to be timely and go ahead and get started. And we always open up our program with the recitation of Al-Fatiha. So we will recite Al-Fatiha first in Arabic and then in English, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Ameen. And what we're saying in English is with the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Praise be to Allah, cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, most gracious, most merciful, master of the day of judgment. Thee alone do we worship, and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, not of those whose portion is wrath, nor of those who go astray. Ameen. Okay. Yes, Alhamdulillah. Again, we thank you for being here with us this evening. And we have been, for the whole month of April now, taking a closer look at intimacy. Specifically focusing on emotional intimacy. And I know I have learned quite a bit about this topic, researching for it during this past month. And I pray that what we share can also benefit those who are joining us. And we do appreciate all of the input from our guests who are joining the program, our collective experiences, and our collective wisdom serve as an educational process within itself. So we appreciate you sharing the knowledge that you have been blessed with, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with. And we look to keep this information for future benefit of those who are seeking this type of knowledge and insight. So again, we have been talking about emotional intimacy. So what we'll do. Okay. And so what we will do is do a recap from last week's show, the 22nd, where we did part 3 on this topic. And this meeting focused on the importance of emotional intimacy in relationships, particularly within the context of African American experiences and the impact of neighborhood environments on mental health and family dynamics. Discussions covered topics such as structural racism, communication challenges between men and women, and the effects of traditional masculinity on emotional expression. The participants emphasized the need for community building, positive socialization, especially among African American men, and creating supportive environments to foster stronger relationships and healthier communities. And some next steps we did discuss were to have community leaders harvest information within their communities and create an inventory of community members and their skills and professions and abilities to identify available resources and mentors for our young people, especially our males. And that as members, we can establish outlets that would be a place of gathering and socializing, such as maybe a coffee shop or a gathering place in the masjid or a coffee shop in the masjid. You won't need a lease. And inshallah, people can arrive early, have a cup of coffee before congregational prayer, socialize, interact, talk. So, strengthening community bonds to offset the negative environments that many may face in their neighborhoods that do not bring about positive results or positive uh, climates for the human being. If you're in a war zone, it's very hard to let your guard down, relax, and be peaceful. You're always on high alert. So, fostering spaces where social interactions can be set in a more with a more positive tone. Sister Rahima was with us last week, and she's talked about setting up family night activities at the masjid, including games and sports and just social gatherings. Um, we talked about creating mentorship programs within uh, business areas and trades. Uh, Sister Rahima again talked about establishing the Wives Club, support groups for married sisters to share experiences and advice, and organize support groups for married men to discuss challenges and shared experiences, which may be kind of hard considering men don't open up as easily to share personal matters um, with other men unless it's a very, very, very close uh, family member or friend. Normally, men come to um, together and they can talk about solutions to business issues or community concerns very easily, but personal matters not so much. And we also said we would post the resource links from last week's presentation in the chat for this week. So I have those links available and I'll be happy to post those in a moment. So let's do that now, inshallah. Okay. And pardon me one moment. Let me get this in the chat because I don't want to forget to do it. Okay. And the second one is on restrictive emotionality. I want to include that one as well. And this one is a new topic for tonight. We're going to post all three of these resource links in the chat. So you can grab those links and add those articles into your library. So, um, just as a recap, last week we talked about how African American men um, handle emotional intimacy and emotional expression, emotional relationships. And um, the link for this article is in the chat. And what we found was that many of our African American brothers, because of cultural, social, and cultural conditioning, have what we call this restrictive emotional expression. You know, you just guard it. We are all guarded somewhat, um, and not just men. If I go on a job and I'm the only African American in on the team, I'm very restricted. I hold my feelings and thoughts very close to the chest because my social conditioning has taught me to do that in environments where you may not be accepted as everyone else is accepted. So just living in this type of environment where we face the undercurrents of racism and social unacceptance on a daily basis. Restrictive emotional expression is something that is a coping mechanism and something that we all share. Not, and I can't say all, but many of us share. Um, and in addition to how we are raised and uh, the family lives that we have or have had, it is the whole cultural dynamic in our country that influences us. So, how does this affect us in our relationships? And these are some of the things that we have been looking at. Okay, having emotional restrictiveness um, outside the home, whether on a job or and you're looking to come home, and on the way home, you're suiting up, putting your armor on because you may be walking through an environment or a neighborhood that is full of crime or that is unsafe. Another layer of being emotionally restrictive. Okay. And then you go in the house and you unwind and unpack and attempt to let your guards down so that you can relax and be peaceful and have an interchange, a positive interchange of emotional expression with your spouse and your family. So, this is a process we have to be aware of. And this is why we talked last week about creating social outlets where we can encourage positive social exchanges with each other to help us be more emotionally balanced, be more emotionally balanced. Because with anything that conducts energy, if it's running 24/7, it's going to need some maintenance. So the more that we are agitated or on high alert or facing challenges that require a large pull of energy on our emotions, um, we have to address it, create spaces to give ourselves a break, to balance out our life, to balance out our emotional output, or in this case, emotional expression or restrictiveness so that we can become more balanced and healthier, uh, inshallah, emotionally. So, this is a very good article to download and put in your library. Um, and the article went on to say here that among our African American men, emotional restrictiveness may be a protective strategy to mask painful feelings and control perceptions of themselves to avoid stereotypes of anger and violence. Okay, so a lot of men work against that stereotype and they don't want to be seen in that way. And that in itself takes work. In a natural environment without racism, this wouldn't be a factor. In a natural, peaceful environment, the avoiding anger and losing control would not be energy we would have to manifest. So, dealing in a grafted society that is not natural for the human being is uh, not healthy for us emotionally. And if we are conscious of this in our relationships, um, inshallah, we can create circumstances to deal with that. Maybe before you get home, just taking a brisk walk or running or go to the gym or go to the masjid makes a lot with the brothers or makes a lot with the sisters and have that healthy exchange, then go home and in a better state of being, inshallah. So the processes that we put in place to help us would be beneficial once we realize the undercurrents of what's happening to us, even on a subconscious level. uh, we can address it and we can seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the manifestations of these experiences within ourselves, inshallah. And we talked about traditionally how African American men have been socialized. And um, I, I, I wanted to put these in order. If we go back across the uh, Atlantic, it was within the tribe. Now we're here, it's in the family. It's in the family and the religious community. And I have bars here because prior to us being Muslim, and even today, men go to bars, and some may stop at a bar on the way home, and that's their way of unwinding. Too bad that bars are not selling carrot juice and uh, healthy smoothies instead of alcohol. Then we could really support it if it was had healthy drinks in there. But that coffee shop at the masjid would be a good idea as a replacement, or a coffee shop at the church if you're not Muslim, at your religious community center. A place to stop and socialize and discharge the negative effects of the day, and to have that camaraderie with fellow believers. We were socialized also through friends, um, work acquaintances. Many men went to the military. That was a part of men being socialized. It used to be promoted that if a young man lacked discipline and was not focused in life, that the military would be beneficial. And it's hard to even suggest that in this day and time because the innocent young man who has harmed no one may end up going somewhere and taking lives um, from people who have basically done us no harm. And it will weigh on the soul in a very negative way. The other way men have been socialized has been through business and business associates, mentors. Mentors was always a big part of our community life. The older gentleman with trades teaching the younger gentleman a trade and helping them get started in carpentry or plumbing or electrical work or even auto mechanics. Okay, sports, sportsmanship, conduct, and skills of discipline, and a way to occupy idle time has been a way that men have been socialized. At the barbershop, having conversations uh, has been an area where men have been socialized. And we talked about this when men congregating um, on the corner or at a spot in the neighborhood. And many times, other people would go to get information from the men that were standing there, or my car is not working and it seems to be misfiring. What can I do? Or just to get some useful information for people who are out in the neighborhoods making themselves available. And, they're having fun too. Let's be clear. They're having fun too and socializing with each other. But that was their way of having that camaraderie and knowing what's going on in the community, and what's happening in the community and having those conversations. Uh, we used to always see our men out uh, in the open in different parts of the community. And it was not always a situation where they were drinking. I think that came later, but they were always made available uh, as a way of socializing and passing on information and addressing community concerns as well. Okay. And so the good things that we have had in our past, inshallah, we can reestablish. And the things that were not so good, we can reinvent in a more positive way to create this socialization and important topics as family and marriage and raising children and things of that nature can be addressed without being vulnerable to other people, because even if we just come from the Holy Quran and give advice from a religious perspective, that would be very beneficial. So we want to build on the good, reestablish and reinvent what we can, and create these opportunities so we can create good experiences in our neighborhoods for our community life and for our emotional health, inshallah. Because what we learned last week um, was that our emotional health is directly affected to our ability to have close, intimate relationships. The worse off we are emotionally, the more restrictive we are going to be. You don't want people to know your emotional state is not good. So you just close off. You just close off from it. And we don't deal with it. And we keep everyone at bay rather than figuring out ways to address it and become more emotionally balanced and emotionally healthy. So as a resource, we looked up and we looked at how were the Sahabas socialized during the time of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Sahaba is an Arabic term, which roughly means the close associates of Prophet Muhammad who spent a lot of time with him, learning from him, supporting him, helping him, that were in his company uh, quite a bit and committed to doing the work of developing the religious community, which we call Ummah. So, uh, Prophet Muhammad had a close and revered relationship with his companions, known as the Sahaba, who were Muslims who met him and believed in him during his lifetime and believed in his mission during his lifetime. And the relationships were marked by mutual love, respect, and close association, shaping their lives and the spread of Islam. And this close association is an important topic because remember, our parents used to tell us you're known by the company that you keep. The company that you keep is very important because it has an impact on you and your development, on us and our development. Who we socialize with regularly, daily, it has an impact on our development. If we read our Holy Quran daily, that has an impact on us. We make salat daily, that has an impact on us. But if we're doing other negative things daily, that also has an impact on us. So we want to choose wisely um, our associations, knowing that it is helping to shape who we are as human beings. So um, there was love and respect between the Sahaba. The Sahaba loved Prophet Muhammad deeply. Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. They loved him deeply, even more than their own families, even more than their wealth and their lives. They would lay their lives down for Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he needed them to. Prophet Muhammad also showed love and respect to his companions. So it was a two-way street, particularly to those who were closest to him, like Abu Bakr, whom he considered a brother. The Prophet's love for Abu Bakr is exemplified by his statement, if I had taken anyone as my closest friend, um, Khalil, I would have taken Abu Bakr, but he is my brother and companion. Close association and guidance. The Sahaba lived in Prophet Muhammad's um, shadow and followed his guidance closely. They were deeply influenced by his character and teachings, striving to emulate his actions and words. The Prophet's companions played a crucial role in preserving and spreading Islam after his death. So they knew that they would be influenced in a positive way. And this is something our young people have to know. Are you being influenced in a positive way or in a negative way? Are these influences taking you out of your character or building your character? And we have to choose the better choice for ourselves. The Sahaba also shared values and sacrificed. They demonstrated remarkable self sacrifice for the sake of Islam um, and the Prophet and developing the community of the Prophet. They faced numerous hardships and challenges while supporting the Prophet and spreading the message of Islam. Their strong moral character and commitment to Islam served as an inspiration for believers today. And just to a side note, when reading this, we went through this in our history where we sacrificed even our lives, knowing that during Jim Crow we may be killed. Our ancestors knew they may be killed. They sacrificed. They were willing to do that just to be able to vote. just to be able to be involved in politics, just to live to become independent, free people. We knew the risk and they did it. They sacrificed, they made sacrifices so that we can have better circumstances. And our young children have to keep that in mind, and they should know of those sacrifices and the fearlessness that our ancestors had, knowing that the reward would be greater. The reward was worth it. Okay. Legacy and importance. And when we teach our young children about this, they should learn about this as well. The legacy and the importance of the sacrifices that we make today to do the right thing, to be the right person, to strive as hard as we can um, to do what's right and establish what's good for us, our families, our people, and future generations. It's very important work. That's how we've gotten to this point, so we cannot stop now. So the Haba are considered a high standing group within Islamic tradition, especially among the Sunni Muslims. Some of the most revered companions include the first four caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. The Sahaba are remembered for their role in shaping early Islamic history and for their unwavering faith um, in Allah, in establishing Al Islam, and in our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And these are just some of the references from that article. And it says, reverence the room that bore you. That was our Quranic reference. You know, when we are developing in our mother's womb, we are under construction. We are under development. We are being developed within a womb where we are fed physically, where we are maintained and kept clean and began to learn and even began to experience the emotions that our mothers are experiencing. Okay, this is a womb. Okay, it says reverence the womb that bore you. Know that we are all still under development. We are all still growing, being nourished, being fed inwardly and outwardly. Our circumstances, our neighborhoods, our families, our homes are all a place of nourishment, are all a place of development for us. So it's up to us to maintain and care for that womb and do all that we can to make sure that we're developing in a good way. Now, this ayat has significant meanings on multiple levels when we read the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran is in the Arabic language. It's a very spiritual language, and it's basically a living language. So, if I read this ayat 10 years ago, I got one thing out of it, but every year I get something different out of it because as I grow, what I can access or access from this ayat also grows and expands. Okay. And it's connected to so many things in so many ways. Man is the maintainer and provider of the women. They're also the maintainer and providers of the home, the family, the community. All of these are wombs of development. And this ties directly into us being as human beings, Khalifa, custodians. Okay? We get what we strive for. So Allah tells us to reverence the womb that bore us. Okay? Our emotional development and emotional health is very important, not just to the woman, but to every human being. So we want to make sure that we are doing all we can to maintain and provide for the areas of development in our life, inshallah. So, what are some of the things we can do differently um, when communicating? And these are suggestions when communicating, sisters, when we're communicating with men, instead of asking them how they feel, if you tell them how you're feeling about different things, you might not want to expect them to turn around and tell you how they feel. They won't come from that angle. But if you ask them, how do you think? That may be a different way for them to respond to you about how they think. And we have to read between the lines to ascertain more about that. They're just wired differently, especially those uh, of us who are emotionally guarded. You're not just going to open that door and give you that emotional conversation, but they can tell you how they think about it. And now you have something that you can work with. And you will learn more about that later on in the slide, inshallah. And increase community interaction to help create positive social outlets or develop that positive environment of uh, development, that positive womb. And those are some of the suggestions that we laid out earlier as well. It's very important. Okay, so we talked about emotional intimacy in Black relationships, and I did put the link to this article in the chat, so please grab that. And restrictive emotionality, we talked about that. Um, that African American individuals, especially or particularly our men, may exhibit restrictive emotionality, potentially stemming from a need to protect ourselves in a world that often views us with suspicion and hostility. Racial trauma, and more social scientists are labeling racial uh, or racism as racial trauma. It's a traumatic experience. You know, someone to hate you because of the way your Lord has created you. You know, that's their problem. That's on their heart. They're hurting themselves more than they realize by carrying that hate. But how does it impact us, even on a subconscious level? Okay, it may emotionally it can contribute to difficulties um, in forming and maintaining healthy emotional and intimate relationships. Okay. And if we don't have social outlets to counteract these things, positive social outlets, you know, we're recycling this process day in, day out. Cultural norms, certain cultural norms within our communities may discourage open emotional expression, leading to a reluctance to share or a reluctance to be vulnerable. And all these numbers with these that are in here in this caption, you'll find in the article, and you can go to their references to learn more about this. Okay, and socioeconomic disparities. the stresses of living in disadvantaged neighborhoods, experiencing systematic racism, and facing economic hardship can also impact emotional availability and intimacy. Okay. Now, the we led into this last week when we were talking about attachment styles, um, and our past experiences, including childhood trauma, can shape our attachment styles, which in turn can impact the ability to form and maintain healthy, emotionally intimate relationships. And many times, and as women, we might not know the answer why our spouses seem so distant or not wanting to talk about things or just shutting down emotionally. And I don't want to deal with that, you know? Oh, here you go with that emotional stuff. Oh, you know, we may not have the information we need to address these areas properly, and this should help. Uh, Tools for the toolbox, okay, to help us understand, in addition to what we've already talked about, uh, these attachment styles. Now, this article, I put it in the chat. It's 30 pages. It's a 30-page article. So they went deep into the science of these attachment styles. So please download that article for your library. It's a good article whether you're a young mother raising children or whether as an adult um, you're looking at relationships and uh, knowing your own attachment style and identifying the attachment styles of others can be very, very beneficial. Okay, so let's unpack this attachment style. Okay, there are four main attachment styles. The first one is secure, the second one is anxious. The third one is avoidant or dismissive, and the fourth one is disorganized, also called fearful avoidant. Is Doctor is our doctor with us this evening? If so, please chime in as we. I know she did her thesis on this, so feel free to chime in as we go through this if you are with us. So this article comes from Simply Psychology, Attachment Styles in Adult Relationships. And we're looking at this because it has a lot to do with being able to be intimate, being able to relax and let your guard down in relationships is your attachment style, and there are four main ones. Attachment styles refer to patterns of bonding that people learn as children and carry into their adult relationships. They're typically thought to originate from the type of care one received in the earliest years of life, and it can follow us all throughout our life. So, again, the first one is secure attachment. Securely attached individuals are comfortable with intimacy and can balance dependence and independence in relationships. Preoccupied attachment, or in children, they identify it as being anxious. In adults, is basically preoccupied. Um, these attachment styles, they go into them as children and adults because They follow us throughout our life. They can follow us throughout our life. And if we don't know about it, we can't address it and be in a position that now that we know better, we can do better and we can repair some of this on our own, knowing how we have been socialized from infancy. So, individuals with this attachment style, preoccupied attachment in adults, um, crave intimacy and can be overly dependent and demanding in relationships. Dismissive attachment. This style is characterized by a strong sense of self sufficiency, often to the point of appearing detached. Individuals with dismissive attachment value their independence highly and seem uninterested in close, intimate relationships. I think we all know somebody like that. And know that they are that way because they've been that's been their attachment style since they were infants, since they were young, and they've grown into that instead of challenging it and breaking down those walls. These are those walls that are very, very high. People have their walls that you have to get around or over or through. Um, that's dismissive and the fearful attachment. Individuals with a fearful attachment style desire close relationships and at the same time fear vulnerability. They may behave unpredictably in relationships due to their internal conflict between a desire for intimacy and the fear of it. So that's really working against yourself. And in the article, please download it. Um, there's a quiz so you can identify your own attachment style. So it'll be fun and it's useful information. And you can decide whether it's true or not, or about you, or what your attachment style is. And it may be one or a mixture of two. I don't know. But it's just a good way to do some introspection on who we are now as adults. Um, so we can look at some of our decisions and even our relationships to know why there was a problem. And if you're looking for a mate, it's good to know so that you can identify these attachment styles in others, inshallah. Now, the article states that attachment styles are expectations people develop about relationships with others. They, and let's read that again. Attachment styles are expectations people develop about relationships with others. And the first attachment is based on the relationships individuals had with their primary caregiver when they were infants. That's the first attachment we have in life. So, attachment styles describe people's comfort and confidence in close relationships, their fear of rejection, and yearning for intimacy, and preference for self sufficiency or interpersonal distance. So, again, we have the secure, that's that very confident person. We have a preoccupied, self-doubting, anxious, sensitive. So secure, you can see, is self-assured, direct, and responsive. Preoccupied, self-doubting, anxious, sensitive. Dismissive, self-reliant, avoidant, and distant. Fearful, self-sabotaging, unpredictable, and isolated. And you can see why this one would be self-sabotaging, because you really want intimacy, but you're afraid of it. That's that's a self-defeating combination, if I've ever heard one. Okay? So, moving on. Attachment styles comprise uh, cognitions related to both the self, am I worthy of love, and others. Can I depend on others during times of stress? Adult attachment styles derived from past relationship histories are conceptualized as internal working models. Individuals can hold either a positive or negative belief of self and a positive or negative belief of others, thus resulting in one of four possible adult attachment styles. The models of others can also be conceptualized as the avoidant dimension of attachment, which corresponds to the level of discomfort a person feels regarding psychological intimacy and dependency. So, alternatively, the model of self can be seen as the anxiety dimensions of attachment, relating to the beliefs about self worth and whether or not one will be accepted or rejected by others. This says a lot, you know. This is why education is so important. I mean, many times, sisters will say, why are these brothers not getting married? Why aren't they getting married? There are so many factors um, that we can impact as to why, and maybe so much that needs to be addressed in different areas of our life, uh, spiritual, intellectual, and now we see emotional, health. We we need some marriage schools. We need to go back to the drawing board and re-educate ourselves on marriage, why it's important, what marriage is, and the barriers that we face in relationships, considering our social and cultural development as former descendants of former slaves in this country and what we have gone through. So the diagram shows people meeting other people. And you see the secure person has no problem with it. You know, it's not an issue. The anxious person is guarded, very guarded in meeting new people. The avoided person is like, you know, I don't even want to meet you. I'm not here. You know, I'm not going through this. And the fearful person, you can see in the diagram that they want to, but oh, I'm afraid to, and that tug of war is going on there. So the two at the top are low avoidance, and the two at the bottom are high avoidance. Okay, so just some food for thought there. So as adults um, who demonstrate a secure attachment style, value relationships, and affirm the impact of relationships on their personalities. They display a readiness to recall and discuss attachments that suggest much reflection regarding previous relationships. Secure adults display openness regarding expressing emotions and thoughts with others and are comfortable with depending on others for help while also being comfortable with others depending on them. Notably, many secure adults may in fact experience negative attachment related events, yet they can objectively assess people and events and assign a positive value to relationships in general. Secure spouses, I'm not going to say lovers, secure spouses characterize their most important relationships as happy and trusting. They can support their spouses despite of their faults. Their relationships also tend to last longer. Secure spouses believe that although romantic feelings may wax and wane, that that deeper tie will never fade. So, through statistical analysis, people who have a secure attachment style were found to have had warmer relationships with their parents during childhood. The next adult is the partner that is preoccupied. Preoccupied individuals crave intimacy but remain anxious about whether the other spouse will meet their emotional needs. Autonomy and independence can make them feel anxious. Additionally, they are preoccupied with dependency on their own parents and still actively struggle to please them. In addition, they can become distressed should they interpret recognition and value both from others as being insincere or failing to meet an appropriate level of responsiveness. Their attachment system is prone to hyperactivation during times of stress. Emotions can become amplified, and overdependence on others is increased. You'll find the links to these footnotes within the article once you download that article. Preoccupied, those who are preoccupied in a relationship characterize their most important relationships by obsession, desire for reciprocity and union, emotional highs and lows, and extreme sexual attraction and jealousy. Now, this might be the case for everybody, but this is their general conclusion according to their research. So, preoccupied spouses often believe that it is easy for them to fall in love, yet they also claim that that unfading, that love that lasts, is difficult to find. They prefer to avoid close relationships. Okay. Now this is the dismissive uh, adult. They prefer to avoid close relationships and intimacy with others to maintain a sense of independence and invulnerability. They don't want to be vulnerable. This means they struggle with intimacy and value autonomy and self reliance. Dismissive hyphen avoidant adults deny experiencing distress associated with relationships and downplay the importance of attachment in general, viewing other people as untrustworthy. And they're untrustworthy emotionally, not that they're emotionally untrustworthy. According to Dr. Julie Smith, a clinical psychologist, these are the signs of an avoidant attachment style in adult relationships. When your spouse seeks intimacy with you, the barriers go up. The more they try to get close, the more you pull back. You hold back on starting new relationships because trusting people emotionally is so hard. I mean, they can trust a person in business because there are clear rules and boundaries there. Okay. You sometimes in relationships to gain a sense of freedom. You keep your spouse at arm's length emotionally because it feels safer, but they often accuse you of being distant. Dismissive spouses are characterized by fear of intimacy, emotional highs and lows, and jealousy. They are often unsure of their feelings toward their spouse, believing that romantic love can rarely last and that it's hard for them to fall in love. Proximity seeking is appraised as unlikely to alleviate distress resulting in deliberate deactivation of the attachment system. Inhibition of the quest for support and commitment to handling distress alone, especially distress arising from the failure of the attachment uh, figure to be available and responsive. Let me read that again. Proximity seeking is appraised as unlikely to alleviate distress resulting in deliberate deactivation of the attachment system. Inhibition of the quest for support and commitment to handling distress alone. especially distress arising from the failure of the attachment figure to be available and responsive. Dismissive individuals have learned to suppress their emotions at the behavioral level, although they are still although they still experience emotional arousal internally, but they won't act on it. This has negative outcomes in terms of cutting themselves off from strong feelings, whether their own or others, thus influencing their experiences of romantic relationships. And this last one is the fearful attachment. Like dismissing avoidant, they often cope with distancing themselves from relationships, from the connections and relationships. But unlike the dismissive individuals, they continue to experience anxiety and neediness concerning their partner's love, reliability, and trustworthiness. They're afraid they're going to get hurt and disappointed. A fearful avoidant prefers casual relationships and may stay in the dating stage of relationships for a prolonged period as this feels more comfortable for them. This is not always because they want to, but because they fear getting closer to someone. A study found that those with a fearful avoidant attachment style are likely to have that dating period and person to person action and uh well you all see that and we don't promote that and we don't do that in Islam. That's not a part of our culture, so it's hard for me to say it, but for the benefit of those who are not Muslim, um, if this is you, you might learn why you're behaving in the way that you behave, because according to this study, that those with a fearful avoidance attachment are likely to have more sexual partners and higher sexual compliance, saying yes easier than other attachment styles because they don't want to get closer to a single person because they're afraid of getting too close. They may prefer to do this in order to in order to avoid deeper connections with people, which is a waste of life and um, not good for the emotional health of the human being. We're meant to grow and get past our difficulties and elevate ourselves, not stay in one spot. We're meant to heal, invest time and energy in ourselves to heal and become better, overcome what mistakes our parents could have made while raising us and what our social conditioning has imposed on us. We strive to overcome those things, not live a life in that spot and not going past it. And this is still the fearful. They could also, we talked about that. A partner with a fearful attachment style may prefer to keep their spouse at a distance because they don't want things to get emotionally intense. They may be reluctant to share too much of themselves to protect themselves from eventual hurt, which they strongly believe is going to happen. If the relationship gets too deep or they are asked to share personal stories, the fearful avoidant may shut down rapidly. It is common for those with fearful attachment style to have grown up in a household that was very chaotic and toxic. As such, the fearful avoidant may expect that their relationships as adults should also be chaotic. These are all wounds that we have developed in, but we have option to make the correction with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, Allah is the Redeemer, most merciful Redeemer. So it is not beyond our capacity to improve our life and our circumstances and um, get a better understanding of why we are the way we are and what we can do to change it or to grow past it. Okay? Um, the fearful attachment style, if they are in a relationship with someone secure and calm, they may be suspicious of why this is. They may believe something must be wrong and may challenge the relationship or create a problem to make the relationship more unsettled because they're used to the chaos. They're used to having the chaotic relationship. So this is self-sabotage. They tend to always expect something bad to happen in the relationship and will likely find any reason to damage the relationship so they do not get hurt. They blame or accuse their spouse of things they have not done, threaten to leave the relationship, or test their spouse to see if this makes them jealous. All these strategies may cause their partner to consider ending the relationship. And this is our last slide, and we want to open it up for discussion. So, um, continuity hypothesis. As human beings, the behavioral attachment system does not conclude in infancy or even childhood. Instead, it is active throughout the lifespan, with individuals gaining comfort from physical and mental representations of significant others. According to John Bowley, later relationships are likely to be a continuation of early attachment styles, secure and insecure, because the behavior of that infant's primary attachment figure promotes an internal working model of relationships, which leads us to expect the same in later relationships. There appears to be a continuity between early attachment styles and the quality of later adult relationships. And it's saying romantic relationships, but that that's very limiting. So we're talking about our emotional relationships. Okay. So according to the continuity hypothesis, experiences within childhood attachment figures are retained over time and used to guide perceptions on the social world and future interactions with others. Okay, so that's going to be the end of that presentation. And it's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to unpack. It's a lot of information there. And um, as I was reading these attachment styles, I could see myself. I'm not going to tell you which one, but I could see other people as well, um, that have known throughout life. And I said, oh, okay, that's what was going on. That's why they were like that. It gives you a better glimpse at why people are the way they are. But it all leads to one protecting themselves emotionally and being and their vulnerabilities. Okay. Yes, Sister Martha, go right ahead. Unmute yourself and go ahead with your comment, please.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum to everyone.
Walaikum assalam.
Manir, all I can do is take a deep breath and say, Alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah. Wow. Talking about taking the cover off, uh, um, like yourself, I won't declare which one, but I was doing something and listening, and when you said a certain one, I looked, oh, really? Okay. Okay. And then too thinking, that being an semi extrovert, all right, not a complete extrovert, but
Mhm,
semi, meaning willing to walk across the room and meet someone I don't know.
mhm,
Whatever the sex is, it doesn't matter. It's just the idea of venturing and saying to yourself, letting go, not saying to yourself, okay, this is weird. No, just really looking at that person and appreciate. In my mind, when I'm meeting someone, I'm thinking, what land are they from?
mhm,
Like, oh, if they're of a different complexion or something. I'm trying to diagnose, what are the nationalities mixed in that. Okay, so anyway, now everybody know. Uh, and then willing to being willing to share of self, but being mindful not to share overload, not to overdo it. You know what I
mhm.
mean? I had to learn that
Yeah.
because my mom said, "Honey, don't tell everything." I'll stop right there.
Yes. Thank you so much for
You're
sharing.
welcome.
Alhamdulillah. And another thing, please lower your hand when you're done so I can recognize you if you have something else to say. So another thing I thought when reading this, uh, reading up on this topic, so many of our youth, um, and not just youth, adults too, experience this anxiety now. Yeah. When I was growing up, that wasn't a common word. Oh, they have anxiety. Uh, I'm having an anxiety attack and things like that. We didn't we didn't experience that conversation like it is today. But if we want to know why families should stay together, a husband and a wife, and work together to raise a family, think about this and our children feeling secure and parents helping each other to stabilize an environment so that there is emotional health and well being in the home. Huge, huge impact. It has a huge impact for the children, especially the males who may have to walk through unproductive environments, getting to school or just to go down the street to a friend's house. The emotional impact. how they're learning to be restrictive, just being in certain environments and not having that male in the home to make them feel secure. And I used to experience this as a child. My mother and father divorced, and when my father wasn't there, I always knew there was something missing. And when he would come and visit us, that would go away. I would feel so secure, like the part that's missing is here. It would make me feel so secure and safe when he came that I'd be very upset when it was time for him to leave. I'd be like, "What? You leaving already? You just got here. You know, can you stay?" I'm like, "Ma, can he stay for dinner?" And I get Mama rolling her eyes at me. You know, because, you know, their relationship wasn't the best, you know, so of course she didn't want him to stay for dinner. But she wouldn't say that out loud because she would have to put on this front to make us see that it was okay for him to stay. So these types of developments in our youth, they kind of stay with us because that's part of our development in our youth. And if we don't have the information where we can put a name to it or we can put a process to it, it's kind of hard to address it. But now we can put a lot of names to a lot of things as to why we're feeling the way that we're feeling, or thinking the way that we're feeling, or acting the way that we're acting because of how we have been conditioned throughout life. So, um, again, this is why us learning and this education is is so important, so that we can have healthier relationships. And I think that as women, we interpret things we can interpret things differently. If a person's shutting down and they're just emotionally unavailable, and you're talking, trying to get them to interact, and you're not getting any interaction, and the person is not being present in the relationship, one of the things that we can think is that this brother doesn't love me. This brother don't even want to be here. He don't even want to be in a relationship with me. So at least now we can say, well, maybe his is his attachment style. Maybe it's his attachment style, and we can begin to maybe ask questions, not all at once, but to share some stories with me about the best time you had with your mother and the type of mother that she was to you. These are the conversations we should have in courtship. You know, but if you're now married and you didn't have those conversations and you want to get closer to a person and help get past some of those barriers, we can begin to have those conversations with uh, our spouses to try to get to understand them better. Because remember, they said in the article, even the dismissive attachment style They're showing you that dismissiveness outwardly, but internally, they want to have this good relationship, but they run on autopilot on the shutdown part and create these barriers, not because they want to be alone, but to protect themselves emotionally. So hopefully we have a starting point to have conversations uh, with those attachment styles that are self-defeating and negative. It's not, you can say, well, it might not be me. It might be this attachment style. Yes, go ahead, Sister Martha.
I have one quick question, Manera, to everyone, to you, definitely. Um, and I never thought of it before about being aggressive. I never saw myself as being aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
but I was. What do you do with that aggressiveness? I mean, what is considered aggressive? I don't know what the border is to say aggressive. When you're at one point you're seen as being open, and but then it's internalized or interpreted as being aggressive. I really don't know because I'm a very open person. I mean, I say open, like uh I don't mind sharing about me, and I think we discussed this before about something, and you cautioned us about some things to share about your past, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess to monitor it to some degree, as you're now speaking about the parent relationship, the mother. Um, so where is that? Is there a borderline, and is it just what you feel? You just feel your way through that border of being when I say aggressive, I'm speaking about being open and willing and already seeing the
Yes,
end of the road. I mean, not the end of the road ending, but seeing already everything in fruition into fruition.
yes,
I'll stop
yeah.
right there.
Okay, yeah. So as we were, as I was reading again, as I was looking into this article, I see where when we're courting, when we're courting someone, and you're putting out energy and you're putting out effort, it's natural to want to see the same effort return to you, return to you in the courtship process. So if a person is being open and oh, I'm an open book, and the other person is being very reserved and not sharing much, like you've been invited, you you've been invited over, but we just go sit here on the front porch. You can't come in, and they're being guarded, and they're not putting forth that effort, and the other person may start to share more, hoping that they will reciprocate and put forth that effort and be that open book. So, from that, I think we can conclude two things for sure, maybe more. One is that they are restrictive emotionally. They're not at that point where they're just going to open up to you emotionally about anything. And maybe they are not ready for, truly ready for a close relationship. So if we get those signals from a person, we should back up. For that reason, we should go slow in the first place. Don't be the open book until it's safe to be the open book, until you can understand more about the person, how they're operating, what their intentions are, um, why they are talking to you. Do they really want to go forward in this relationship with you? There's a time to be an open book. And when we're just meeting someone and feeling our way through relationships, that's not the time, especially for the woman, especially for the sister, which is why that Wali is so important. So the Wali can tell you it's safe to proceed. But even when we get that go ahead and the person has been vetted, you know, go slow. Seek to understand the person and who they are before giving our hearts away. We can just assume the best and assume all these good qualities are there. And, we're just falling in love or letting our guard down. And, you know, these are good qualities that we have as women. We need those qualities to manage families, to care for families, children, neighborhood, other people's children's neighborhoods. We have a huge capacity to love and nurture. That is a good thing. That is a good quality that our Creator has blessed us with. But we have to guard it. We have to guard it so that we won't be hurt repeatedly emotionally. So we want to go slow. And now, if we take what we learn, and I'm speaking to myself because I'm learning this as well, that we know the importance of guarding our hearts and getting to understand a person, how they interact on intimate levels. Some people can be an open book talking to you about spiritual things and knowledge of the religion and the history of the religion and the religion as it relates to today's day and time. They can be an open book and talk to you about that hours and hours and hours. But you switch the conversation to these interpersonal things, they may not have much to say. They don't have the same level of development in that area. Some people can talk to you about their career and what they do for a living for hours and hours and hours and hours, and they're an open book about it. But you go inside, they may not have much to say because that part hasn't been developed. So through listening to stories and seeing how they interact with family, the relationship with their mothers, their treatment as children, getting people to open up about those things and talk to you about those things. It's just my opinion, but I think going forward, if a person is unwilling to do that and open up about those things, you're venturing out into the unknown. You have no idea how a person has been nurtured or developed and you don't have the information you need to really get to know them. So when we're talking about getting to know people, we want to get to know them before we're the open book. And we want to know that they are willing to give a firm commitment to a relationship before unpacking in a relationship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I should keep this ayat on my desktop, and I'm going to do that inshallah after I get off of tonight's program so that I can reference back to it because it's so important that the woman accepts a firm covenant, a firm covenant, a firm commitment when it comes to marriage. Allah is telling us right there that, let me see if I can pull it up. I'm not sharing my screen, so I should be able to pull it up. That Allah has designed us in a way where there should be a firm commitment uh, for marriage, not a flimsy. I think so. None of that. A firm commitment. I'm away from my screen, so let me know if someone's hand is raised, so I can come back. I'm gonna find that ayat. Okay, okay. It is Surah 4, ayat 21. Surah 4, ayat 21. And it's talking about the dowry. Um, and this is a situation where someone, or it was happened where after marriage they decided that it was best to part. And Allah revealed in this ayat regarding the dowry and how could you take it back after having enjoyed each other intimately and she has taken from you a firm commitment. The term firm commitment is used in Dr. Mustafa Khattab's transliteration of the ayat. And Abdullah Yusuf Ali's transliteration says, and how could ye take it when ye have gone in unto each other, and they have taken from you a, a solemn covenant, a solemn covenant, a firm commitment. So Allah is telling us that He expects a firm commitment, a firm covenant. This is a sacred union between husband and wife. This is not a union of being an acquaintance with someone. This is Allah's sacred institution of matrimony where children are born, where people are garments for each other, from husband and wife are garments for each other, and a sacred relationship to uphold right conduct and righteousness and the striving for righteousness together in the life. So before someone can show you that they are willing to give that firm covenant to you, you should be guarded. There's a time to be an open book, but it's not in the beginning of the courtship. You have to know who you're courting before you can learn that and what conditions are right for you to um, be that revealing of your heart and have that kind of connection. So you don't want to be in a position where you're going nowhere really fast, if I can phrase it that way. So I hope that addresses what you uh, what you asked. Okay. So over the past 4 weeks, we've unpacked a lot about intimacy and emotional intimacy, emotional safety, uh, and it is um, it has been a learning experience. Let me check the chat and see if we have any questions. Okay. Okay, we don't have any questions in the chat. And so what I want to do, I'm going to pull it up. Just going to go over the first, just want to go over the summary of our first introduction to this series on emotional safety, just because it was so important that I just want to revisit it as we get ready to close out this section. And if there's anything else that you all feel we want to talk about or discover about any of these areas, you can just put it in the chat for me, and I'll be happy to uh, develop a presentation about it, and we can go forward with that, discuss that as well. So I'm just going to share my screen, and we can go over the summary for the first presentation we had on emotional safety. Okay. All right. So this was the summary for the first presentation we did on emotional safety. And it basically is from the perspective of a female and what a female uh, needs in a relationship is to feel emotionally safe. But as we learn more about this topic, we can see also that some of our men may feel emotionally unsafe as well, and they are very guarded and have restricted emotionality because of it. So um, we learn what we can and use it uh, wherever it's needed, inshallah. But in summary, this was the wisdom from a 92-year-old woman. The heartfelt narrative explores the profound emotional wisdom shared by a 92-year-old woman who offers deep insight into the dynamics of lasting love and connection. Contrary to popular belief that physical attraction and effort alone sustain intimacy, she emphasizes the irreplaceable role of emotional security, consistent kindness, and deep presence. Key insights: emotional safety is crucial. A woman opens herself fully when she feels loved, safe, and emotionally secure. Physical closeness fades, not because of diminished affection, but due to a loss of emotional connection. And that can feed into what we were just talking about, Martha, that don't open yourself up fully too soon. Are you emotionally secure enough in the relationship? Have you made to be feel emotionally safe enough in the relationship to open up fully? You know, we trust in Allah, we tie our camels. Okay, we keep ourselves safe, inshallah. Small acts matter. Genuine recognition, attentive listening, everyday gestures, and thoughtful communication build the emotional sanctuary that allows intimacy to thrive. So, this said, we have to create the environment. We have to create the environment to nurture this sanctuary, this home, this relationship, this sacred union. We have to create the environment to support and nurture and help develop this emotional intimacy. It's not something that just happens. It has to be nurtured. Presence over performance. Rekindling emotional bonds doesn't require grand gestures or constant striving. It demands authentic presence, compassionate listening, and consistent emotional availability. Okay. And emotional disconnection is gradual. The loss of closeness often stems from unnoticed, cumulative moments of emotional neglect, not from a sudden event. Awareness and intentional nurturing of emotional bonds are vital. Pardon me, trying to do two things at once. So, if emotional closeness is lost gradually, it can also be built gradually. Okay, so making your environment one and building an environment of compassion, kindness, and emotional care is conducive to healthy emotional relationships. Listening as an act of love, true listening without judgment, without trying to fix, create a powerful space where vulnerability can exist and intimacy can flourish anew. Rekindling connection. Emotional bonds can be mended with deliberate actions, expressing gratitude, offering affectionate touches without expectations, being constantly attentive, and validating emotions. A lifelong journey. Intimacy and emotional connection require continuous care. Aging does not diminish the need for emotional validation. In fact, it often deepens it. And final reflection: love, closeness, and connection are not static, They require nurturing throughout everyday kindness, emotional presence, and authentic engagement. The 92-year-old woman's wisdom reminds us that the heart seeks emotional security far more than perfection. And when that security is present, love blossoms naturally at any stage in life. Her core message encapsulates a timeless truth. A woman opens herself completely when she senses love, safety, and emotional stability. It is a call not to grandiosity, but to deep, simple, consistent acts of caring. In a world where distractions abound, her words offer a gentle but urgent reminder to slow down, be present, and cherish the profound beauty found in emotional connection. Okay. All right. So we have 8 minutes left in our presentation tonight. Are there any other comments, questions, or concerns? Okay.
Um,
Yes. Walaikum assalam, Sister Bina.
yeah, yeah. I've been listening, and everything is so beautiful. Um, and good. The information has been good. I've been thinking as I was listening while you were doing your presentation. This reminds me of all the programs that I've watched um, from the series called "Fix My Life" with Iyanla Vanzant. What she did in each episode basically was to, in order to fix someone's life, is to go to their childhood, find out how their parents raised them, what environment they were in, see where the uh, brokenness was, and then repair the brokenness basically with uh, forgiveness with whomever it is the brokenness occurred. So sometimes that would what mom did innocently, just being a parent and raising their children and just going through generational movements because of what they saw their parents do. They just continue to do the same thing. And so they get the same results. And therefore, their children would take on those same patterns and it would continue to go on. So, in fixing, what they'd have to do is go back, see where the hurt came, because each individual child, because of their individual experiences and their soul, would experience whatever it was that was being going, whatever was happening in the family and in the house, in a different way, because Allah has given us different souls.
Yes.
So the brokenness might be different in one child and then in another. But ultimately, she got to the bottom of it, because there was no way to fix what happened in the past, she had them look at it, see where it was, see that it was innocent, it was not intentional, and then ask for forgiveness
Yes.
going forward. And just that small thing of apologizing or saying, not just apologizing, but saying, forgive me, just melted the hearts of all the individuals where they were able to go forward and not carry the same hurt on. therefore changing that generational uh, curse or pattern that they had. And going forward, she gave them tools, like with this information that you've given us here, just so we understand that we have gone through things and they are named different things like anxiety or avoidance and those types of things. You're right. We didn't have the names of those things in the past, but we see them now and we understand them now. So having that understanding, we could take that into the future and create more healthier relationships. I want to say myself, just in watching those episodes that she's had, it's allowed me to take a look at myself and say, well, what has it, what has been running me? What's running me when I'm not thinking, when I'm not conscious? And the way I can find out a lot of times is how the person that I'm talking to reacts and really, truly, and consciously paying attention to how they react, being in the moment and not thinking that maybe they don't know what they're talking about when they say something to me, but really take it to heart and examine it and say, well, maybe I am doing this. Yeah, I need to change something about what I'm doing. And praises be to Allah, I could see it a lot better, especially because just coming out of Ramadan, my prayer was, like I think most of us, is to come out of Ramadan being better and different than we were when we came in. So just understanding that we weren't taught really how to be in relationships. We experienced it by watching our parents and watching what happened in our households. That was our lesson in terms of being taught, but that's not something that is really done intentional in a family. So if we know that our children are watching us and we can take from these positive notes and things that you're giving us now going forward, we can um, make a shift and create a new paradigm in our families right now
Yes.
so that our children can experience something different and in terms they could and in turn they can do differently with their children and in their relationships, just as a whole.
Mhm.
So very beautiful presentation. I really enjoyed it, and inshallah, I'll be hanging in here to hear more, to be able to continue to grow, actually, just to continue to grow
Yes, ma'am.
with the help of Allah and the Quran.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. And pray that we all continue to grow and improve. That's the biggest room we have in the house, the room for improvement. Yeah. And, we can all continue to grow and improve and inshallah, to be successful in our relationships. So I thank you all for being here with us this evening. And this will be posted on the Facebook page after it's processed and downloaded. So you can invite others to listen to it and listen to the presentation. And inshallah, we can reach more people with these messages. So again, thank you for being here with us this evening and thank you for your contributions. And we're going to leave you as we begin with the greetings of peace. May we all enjoy the peace that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give us. The greetings of peace of Assalamu alaikum. We'll be back here next Tuesday, same time, Please join us and bring a friend. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Mhm.